was a central idea of the early climatology papers on the hypothesis. They were considered more of a possible contributor than smoke from cities, as the smoke from oil has a higher ratio of black soot, thus absorbing more sunlight. 94, 102. Hobbs compared the paper's assumed emission factor or soot generating efficiency from ignited oil pools and found, upon comparing to measured values from oil pools at Kuwait, which were the greatest soot producers, the emissions of soot assumed in this satellite photo of the south of Britain shows black smoke from the 2005 Buncefield fire, a series of fire sand explosions involving approximately 250 million litres of fossil fuels. The plume is seen spreading in two main streams from the explosion site at the apex of the inverted V. By the time the fire had been extinguished, the smoke had reached the English Channel. The orange dot is a marker, not the actual fire. Although the smoke plume was from a single source, and larger in size than the individual oil well fire plumes in Kuwait 1991, the Buncefield smoke cloud remained due to the stratosphere. Nuclear winter calculations were still too high. 121. Following the results of the Kuwaiti oil fires being in disagreement with the core nuclear winter promoting scientists, 1990's nuclear winter papers generally attempted to distance themselves from suggesting oil well and reserve smoke will reach the stratosphere. In 2007, a nuclear winter study noted that modern computer models had been applied to the Kuwait oil fires, finding that individual smoke plumes are not able to loft smoke into the stratosphere, but that smoke from fires covering a large area like some forest fires can lift smoke into the stratosphere, and recent evidence suggests that this occurs far more often than previously lied out. 7. 22, 125, 126. The study also suggested that the burning of the comparably smaller cities, which would be expected to follow a nuclear strike, would also loft significant amounts of smoke into the stratosphere. Stenshikov et al. 2006b. 127. Conducted detailed high-resolution smoke plume simulations with the IMS regional climate model. For example, Miguez Macho et al. 2005. 128. And showed that individual plumes such as those from the Kuwait oil fires in 1991 would not be expected to loft into the upper atmosphere or stratosphere, because they become diluted. However, much larger plumes, such as would be generated by city fires, produce large, undiluted mass motion that results in smoke lofting. New large eddy simulation model results at much higher resolution also give similar lofting to our results, and no small-scale response that would inhibit the lofting. Jensen 2006. 129. However, the above simulation notably contained the assumption that no dry or wet deposition would occur. 127. Recent modeling. Between 1990 and 2003, commentators noted that no peer-reviewed papers on nuclear winter were published. 110. Based on new work published in 2007 and 2008 by some of the authors of the original studies, several new hypotheses have been put forth. Primarily the assessment that as few as 100 firestorms would result in a nuclear winter. 320. However, far from the hypothesis being new, it drew the same conclusion as earlier 1980s models, which similarly regarded 100 or so city firestorms as a threat. 130, 131. Compared to climate change for the past millennium, even the smallest exchange model would plunge a planet into temperatures colder than the Little Ice Age, the period of history between approximately 1600 and 1850 AD. This would take effect instantly, and agriculture would be severely threatened. Larger amounts of smoke would produce larger climate changes, making agriculture impossible for years. In both cases, new climate model simulations show that the effects would last for more than a decade. 32. 2007 Study on Global Nuclear War. A study published in the Journal of Geophysical Research in July 2007, titled Nuclear Winter Revisited with a Modern Climate Model and Current Nuclear Arsenals, Still Catastrophic Consequences, 19, used current climate models to look at the consequences of a global nuclear war involving most or all of the world's current nuclear arsenals, which the authors judged to be one similar to the size of the world's arsenals 20 years earlier. The authors used a global circulation model, Model E from the NASA Goddard Institute for Space Studies, which they noted has been tested extensively in global warming experiments and to examine the effects of volcanic eruptions on climate. The model was used to investigate the effects of a war involving the entire current global nuclear arsenal, projected to release about 150 TG of smoke into the atmosphere, as well as a war involving about one-third of the current nuclear arsenal, projected to release about 50 TG of smoke. In the 150 TG case they found that a global average surface cooling of 7 degrees C to 8 degrees C persists for years, and after a decade the cooling is still 4 degrees C, Fig 2. Considering that the global average cooling at the depth of the last ice age 18,000 years ago was about 5 degrees C, this would be a climate change unprecedented in speed and amplitude in the history of the human race. The temperature changes are large over land. Cooling of more than 20 degrees C occurs over large areas of North America and of more than 30 degrees C over much of Eurasia, including all agricultural regions. In addition, they found that this cooling caused a weakening of the global hydrological cycle, reducing global precipitation by about 45%. As for the 50 TG case involving one-third of current nuclear arsenals, they said that the simulation produced climate responses very similar to those for the 150 TG case, but with about half the amplitude, but that the time scale of response is about the same. They did not discuss the implications for agriculture in depth, but noted that a 1986 study which assumed no food production for a year projected that most of the people on the planet would run out of food and starve to death by then, and commented that their own results show that this period of no food production needs to be extended by many years, making the impacts of nuclear winter even worse than previously thought. 2014. In 2014, Michael J. Mills, at the U.S. National Center for Atmospheric Research, NCA, et al., published Multi-Decadal Global Cooling and Unprecedented Ozone Loss Following a Regional Nuclear Conflict in the journal Earth's Future. 132. The authors used computational models developed by NCA to simulate the climatic effects of a soot cloud that they suggest would be a result of a regional nuclear war in which 100 small, 15 KT, weapons are detonated over cities. The model had outputs. Due to the interaction of the soot cloud, global ozone losses of 20-50% over populated areas, levels unprecedented in human history, would accompany the coldest average surface temperatures in the last 1,000 years. We calculate summer enhancements in UV indices of 30-80% over mid-latitudes, suggesting widespread damage to human health, agriculture, and terrestrial and aquatic ecosystems. Killing frosts would reduce growing seasons by 10-40 days per year for 5 years. Surface sea temperatures would be reduced for more than 25 years, due to thermal inertia and albedo effects in the ocean and expanded sea ice. The combined cooling and enhanced UV would put significant pressures on global food supplies and could trigger a global nuclear famine. 2018. Researchers at Los Alamos National Laboratory published the results of a multiscale study of the climate impact of a regional nuclear exchange. the same scenario considered by Robokit AL and by Tunit AL in 2007. Unlike previous studies, this study simulated the processes whereby black carbon would be lofted into the atmosphere and found that very little would be lofted into the stratosphere and, as a result, the long-term climate impacts were much lower than those studies had concluded. In particular, none of these simulations produced a nuclear winter effect, and the probability of significant global cooling from a limited exchange scenario as envisioned in previous studies is highly unlikely. 133. This study has been contradicted by results in several subsequent studies claiming the 2018 study to be flawed. 134, 135, 136, 137. Research published in the peer-reviewed journal Safety suggested that no nation should possess more than 100 nuclear warheads because of the blowback effect on the aggressor nation's own population because of nuclear autumn. 138, 139, 2019. 2019 saw the publication of two studies on nuclear winter that build on previous modeling and describe new scenarios of nuclear winter from smaller exchanges of nuclear weapons than have been previously simulated. As in the 2007 study by Robokit AL. 19. A 2019 study by Coupe et al. Models a scenario in which 150 TOF black carbon is released into the atmosphere following an exchange of nuclear weapons between the United States and Russia, where both countries use all of the nuclear weapons. Treaties permit them to. 140. This amount of black carbon far exceeds that which has been emitted in the atmosphere by all volcanic eruptions in the past 1,200 years, but is less than the asteroid impact which caused a mass extinction event 66 million years ago. 140. Coupe et al. Used the whole atmosphere community climate model version 4. WACM4, which has a higher resolution and is more effective at simulating aerosols and stratospheric chemistry than the Model E simulation used by Robokit et al. 140. The WACM4 model simulates that black carbon molecules increase to 10 times their normal size when they reach the stratosphere. Model E did not account for this effect. This difference in black carbon particle size results in a greater optical depth in the WACM4 model across the world for the first 2 years after initial injection due to greater absorption of sunlight in the stratosphere. 140. This will have the effect of increasing stratospheric temperatures by 100 K and result in ozone depletion that is slightly greater than model predicted. 140. Another consequence of the larger particle size is accelerating the rate at which black carbon molecules fall out of the atmosphere. After 10 years from the injection of black carbon into the atmosphere, WACM4 predicts 2 Tg will remain, while Model E predicted 19 Tg. 140. The 2019 model and the 2007 model both predict significant temperature decreases across the globe. However, the increased resolution and particle simulation in 2019 predicted greater temperature anomaly in the first 6 years after injection but a faster return to normal temperatures between a few months after the injection to the 6th year of anomaly. The WACM4 predicts cooler global temperatures than Model E, with temperatures more than 20 K below normal leading to freezing temperatures during the summer months over much of the northern hemisphere, leading to a 90% reduction in agricultural growing seasons in humid latitudes, including the Midwestern United States. 140. WACM4 simulations also predict a 58% reduction in global annual precipitation from normal levels in years 3 and 4 after injection, a 10% higher reduction than predicted in Model E. 140. Tunit et al. Simulated a nuclear scenario in 2025. where India and Pakistan engage in a nuclear exchange in which 100 urban areas in Pakistan and 150 urban areas in India are attacked with nuclear weapons ranging from 15 kt to 100 kt, and examine the effects of black carbon released into the atmosphere from airburst-only detonations. 5. The researchers modeled the atmospheric effects if all weapons were 15 kt, 50 kt, and 100 kt, providing a range where a nuclear exchange would likely fall into given the recent nuclear tests performed by both nations. The ranges provided are